Welcome to this special 3-hour journey, a journey not only to guide you into deep sleep, but also to open the doorway to wisdom and inner peace through the teachings of the Buddha. Modern life in America is full of storms. It could be the pressure of work, the unpaid bills, the loneliness of long nights, or nameless worries that keep you awake at night. No matter what shape your storm takes, this very moment can become an island of stillness. The Buddha once taught that within every suffering lies the seed of wisdom. Just like the lotus that rises from the mud, our difficulties give us the chance to bloom and to shine. And in this video, we will dive into core teachings, sunyata, karma, the bodhisattva path, and much more. These are not distant philosophies, but living lessons that help you let go, understand yourself more deeply, and discover peace in the very heart of life's challenges. Allow me to ask you one thing. What storm are you facing in your life? As you listen, let these teachings become your map, illuminating the road ahead. If this is your first time here, please subscribe so you will not miss any of these profound spiritual journeys. And if you have been walking with us already, know that your presence is part of this Sangha right here. Now, let yourself relax, breathe deeply, and allow each breath to become a bridge leading you into the vast ocean of wisdom. In Sanskrit, sunyata means emptiness. At first, many people think that emptiness is nothingness, void, or loss. But in Buddhist wisdom, emptiness is not a black hole that swallows everything. It is the release of the illusion that things are fixed and unchanging. Have you ever felt trapped inside an image of yourself? For example, I am an employee of a big company. I am a father. I am a failure. All of those labels are like walls that keep us stuck. Sunyata teaches us that these walls are only illusions. In the Heart Sutra, there is a famous line, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." This means that everything we see, from this body to emotions to thoughts, has no separate, permanent essence. They exist only because countless conditions come together, and they dissolve when those conditions change. Think of a river in the Grand Canyon. The water flows endlessly, and no drop is ever the same as another. Yet we still call it a river. What we call river is really just a convenient name, not a fixed entity. Our lives are the same way. Here is a real example. An American businessman, after many years of work, suddenly lost his job when his company collapsed. He once believed his value was tied to his title and his income. When those disappeared, he felt that he himself disappeared too. But then he learned the teaching of sunyata. He realized that the self tied to his career was only a temporary garment. By laying down that garment, he discovered freedom within himself again. Modern science also points to the same truth. A Harvard study found that when people practice mindfulness, which is one way of touching sunyata, stress levels can decrease by up to 30%. Why? Because when we let go of clinging to me and mine, worry, fear, and heavy burdens fade away too. Ask yourself, what are you clinging to? Maybe it is your job, a relationship, or an image you built of yourself. When you believe those things are permanent, you suffer when they change. But when you see that everything is impermanent, everything is empty, you can smile even when things fall apart. Sunyata does not tell us to deny life. On the contrary, it gives us a new way of seeing. When you understand that nothing has a fixed nature, you also understand that everything can change, everything can transform. Remember the story of the lotus. A lotus cannot grow on dry land. It needs mud, water, and sunlight. Each element by itself is not absolute, but when the right conditions come together, the lotus blooms. Your life is the same. Many Americans living in busy cities are often pressured by the demand to succeed, which can block the inner light. Sunyata reminds us that even failure is not fixed. It is only a passing state within the greater flow of life. When you lie down to sleep, your mind may be full of questions. Will I have enough money tomorrow? Does that person still love me? Am I a failure? Sunyata teaches that even those questions are like clouds. They come and they go. The sky of your mind remains wide and open, untouched by them. So, with each breath in and out, try reminding yourself, I am not limited by any label. When you practice this, you will feel lighter, like a bird freed from an invisible cage. Sunyata is the doorway to freedom. Freedom from the illusion of a permanent self. Freedom from the fear of loss. Freedom to live fully in each present moment. One of the biggest misunderstandings about sunyata is thinking that it makes us indifferent or cold. But in truth, when we see the emptiness of all things, we are able to love more deeply. Why is that? Because when you know that the person you love, or even yourself, is only temporary, you cherish every single moment you still have. An American mother once shared that when her son was about to leave home for college, she felt empty, as if she had lost a part of herself. But when she remembered the teachings of impermanence and emptiness, she began to treasure the smallest moments. A meal together, a morning hug. And instead of drowning in sorrow, she felt her heart open, grateful for the chance to be a mother. Sunyata also helps us let go of fixed judgments about others. When you believe someone is a bad person, you are building a rigid wall around them. But when you remember that people are always changing, you create space for forgiveness, giving them and yourself a new chance. In neuroscience, there is a concept called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change its structure through new experiences. This is actually in harmony with sunyata. Nothing is rigid. Even your brain is always renewing, learning, and adapting. A meditation master once said, "To see emptiness does not mean you disappear. It means you begin to live authentically." Authentic, because you are no longer trapped in roles and titles. Authentic, because you can smile even when the world thinks you are failing. Imagine standing before a great mirror. You see your reflection. But if the mirror shatters, the reflection vanishes too. Sunyata reminds us that what we call the self is like that reflection. It has no independent essence, yet it is still real in each moment it appears. To practice sunyata, you do not need to go to a temple, nor do you need to leave your job or your family. Each day, simply pause for a few minutes, look at something familiar and ask, is this truly fixed? For example, when you hold your morning cup of coffee, you may see that it is made from water, from coffee beans, from the hands of a farmer in Central America, from the warmth of the Sunday. Nothing exists by itself. Everything is empty. And when you let go of fixed ideas about everything, you discover freedom. Freedom from fear, from the burden of keeping things the same. You can love without fear of loss, work wholeheartedly without fear of failure, live fully without being trapped by the past or the future. Here is a question for you. Today, are you holding on to something as if it were permanent? Try opening your hand a little. Let the natural flow of life carry it, and notice how light your heart feels. By practicing to see sunyata in every moment, you begin to realize that the freedom you seek is not outside of you. It has always been within you. In Sanskrit, karma means action. But in Buddhism, karma is not only about great deeds or dramatic events. Karma includes every word you speak, every thought you think, and even the smallest things you do each day. In the Dhammapada there is a verse: "The mind precedes all things, the mind is their master, the mind creates them." This means that our mind is what determines the direction of our lives. Our actions are simply the outward expression of the seeds in the mind. Imagine your mind as a garden. Each thought, each word, each action is a seed planted there. If you plant seeds of anger, jealousy, and selfishness, your garden will be filled with weeds. But if you plant seeds of compassion, gratitude, and mindfulness, that garden will blossom with flowers and sweet fruit. Here is an example from America. A man lived under constant job stress. Every day, stuck in traffic on the highway, he cursed and shouted in anger. He thought it was just a small reaction, nothing important. But little by little, that anger became a habit. It shaped how he treated his co-workers and his family. His wife felt distant. His children were afraid because their father was always frowning. This is karma. A small action, repeated again and again, created an atmosphere of suffering around him. But karma is not only about the negative. It is also the opportunity to plant the positive. Another American woman lost her husband in an accident and was drowning in grief. Instead of letting the pain turn into bitterness, she began writing a gratitude journal each day. She recorded the smallest things: a flower outside the window, the smile of a stranger, the warmth of a cup of tea. Slowly, she discovered that gratitude was transforming how she saw the world. She was no longer swallowed by loss, but turned her pain into seeds of growth. Scientists confirm the same truth. A study from the American Psychological Association showed that practicing gratitude can significantly improve mental health, reducing depression, increasing happiness, and strengthening social connections. This is positive karma, planting seeds of gratitude and harvesting peace. In daily life, we often overlook these small karmas. A word of encouragement at the right moment can change someone's entire day. A compassionate look can ease a hidden pain. But the opposite is also true. A careless word can leave a wound that lasts for years. You can try a small practice. For 1 week, live with mindful karma. Each day, choose one positive action to plant. It might be sending a sincere thank you, offering your seat to someone on the bus, or simply smiling at a stranger. These small acts, repeated, begin to form new habits, nurturing a healthy garden in your mind. The beautiful thing is that karma does not stop with the individual. It spreads into the community. One person planting seeds of compassion can inspire an entire family. One community planting seeds of understanding can help transform society. History also proves this. Martin Luther King Jr., by planting seeds of non-violence and love, created a movement that changed the entire nation. His karma did not end with his life. It continues to blossom in generations after him. When we understand karma in this way, we realize we are never powerless. No matter how difficult our current circumstances, we can still plant a new seed. And that seed, sooner or later, will grow. People often ask, if everything is shaped by karma, does that mean I am trapped by my past? The answer is no. Karma is not a rigid fate. Karma is like a garden you have planted, but today you can still choose to plant new seeds. If, in the past, you planted seeds of anger and selfishness, today you can choose to plant seeds of patience and compassion. Every choice in the present moment is an opportunity for transformation. This is the power of karma. It does not chain you down, it hands you the key to change. A meditation master once said, "If you want to know what you did in the past, look at your present. If you want to know your future, look at what you are doing right now." In America, many people live under financial pressure, worried about debt. They may feel stuck without a way out. But if they begin planting new seeds, like living simply, practicing gratitude, and sharing, gradually they create a lighter future. Each small act can redirect the entire course of a life. Another example, a teacher in California shared that every morning she spent 5 minutes greeting her students with a smile and words of encouragement. At first, it was just a small habit. But after years, she realized her students were more confident, more kind, and her classroom became a positive community. Her karma did not stop with herself. It planted seeds in an entire generation of children. So how can you begin practicing karma today? Try a simple challenge, 7 days of karma meditation. Each day, choose one positive seed to plant. It might be calling a relative you have not spoken to in years. It might be dropping a coin in a charity box, or simply sitting for 5 minutes in mindful breathing. When you do this, you will see that you are not a victim of circumstances. You are the gardener of your own life. And your life garden, over time, will blossom with peace. Modern science also confirms this. Studies on behavior show that a small habit repeated daily will shape the brain's structure and change the way you experience the world. In other words, karma is not only a spiritual belief. It is also a truth proven by scientific data. Perhaps you are asking yourself, what seed should I plant right now? Let the answer come from your heart. Maybe it is the seed of forgiveness you have delayed for years. Maybe it is the seed of patience with yourself, or the seed of listening instead of judging. When you lie down tonight, take 1 minute to reflect on your day. What seeds did you plant? Are you satisfied with the garden you are growing? If not, tomorrow is another opportunity. Karma does not demand perfection. It simply invites you to be mindful of each action. Every smile, every handshake, every thought, all of them matter. And together, they accumulate into the destiny you live. Remember, life is not a fixed sentence. It is a garden you can tend every day. And the seeds you plant today are the gift you offer to tomorrow. In the Mahayana tradition, the image of the Bodhisattva is the symbol of boundless compassion. If the Arhat seeks liberation for themselves alone, the Bodhisattva chooses a longer path, not only to seek enlightenment personally, but to vow to help all beings awaken as well. In the Diamond Sutra, it is said, "Sentient beings are countless. I vow to liberate them all." This vow is not just a distant ideal. It is a reminder that each of us can live with the heart of a bodhisattva in daily life. You may ask, but I am just an ordinary person. How can I become a bodhisattva? The answer is this: as long as there is one seed of compassion in your heart, you are already walking that path. Look at examples from modern American life. During the pandemic, a doctor in New York worked day and night, even though he knew he risked infection himself. He once said, "I cannot turn my back when my patients need me." That is the bodhisattva spirit. Not because he wanted praise, but because he saw the suffering of others and simply could not ignore it. The essence of the bodhisattva path is to transform suffering into the motivation to serve. When you face pain, instead of only asking, "Why me?" you can also ask, "How can this pain help me to understand and help someone else?" A woman in America who lost her child in an accident chose not to close her heart. She joined support groups for grieving parents, listening and sharing her own story. She said the pain never fully left, but when she saw others comforted by her story, she felt lighter inside. That too is the bodhisattva spirit. Being a bodhisattva does not mean doing something grand or heroic. Sometimes a single small act is enough to make a difference. A hug for someone who is sad. A word of encouragement for someone in despair. A moment of genuine listening instead of quick judgment. In everyday life, each of us can choose to live in the bodhisattva way right where we are. A teacher listening more deeply to her students. A healthcare worker tending to patients with gentleness. A neighbor offering a kind greeting instead of closing themselves off. These small actions, when combined, create a powerful force. The beautiful truth is that when you live with a bodhisattva heart, you not only help others, you also heal yourself. When your heart expands, your own suffering transforms. Modern psychology calls this compassion satisfaction, the happiness that arises from helping others. A study at Stanford University found that people who regularly practice compassion experience lower stress levels and greater psychological resilience. This means that when you live with the bodhisattva spirit, you not only serve the world, but also strengthen yourself. The bodhisattva path also teaches humility. You do not have to change the entire world at once. You just start with one person, one act, in this very moment. It is like the American story of the starfish thrower. A man walking along the beach saw thousands of starfish washed ashore. He picked them up, one by one, and threw them back into the sea. Someone asked, "Why bother when there are so many? You cannot possibly save them all." The man smiled, picked up another starfish and said, "For this one, it makes a difference." The bodhisattva path also reminds us that service does not mean sacrificing yourself until you are empty. It is about balance, caring for others without forgetting to care for yourself. If you are burned out, you cannot help anyone for long. That is why compassion for others must go hand in hand with compassion for yourself. In the bodhisattva tradition, there is a practice called dedicating merit. It means that any wholesome act you do, instead of keeping the positive energy for yourself, you send it out to all beings. This not only nourishes selflessness, but also reminds you that you are never separate. You are always connected to the whole. In America, many people search for meaning in volunteer work. A group of college students volunteered to serve meals to the homeless every week. At first, they thought they were giving. But after a few months, they realized that they themselves were the ones receiving joy, connection, and lessons in kindness. That is also the bodhisattva spirit, giving without demand, and in giving, being nourished yourself. The bodhisattva path also emphasizes courage. Not courage to defeat others, but courage to open your heart, to step into another's suffering without running away. A nurse in a hospice once said, "I know I cannot save them from death, but I can help them not die alone." That is the courage of a bodhisattva. The interesting thing is that when you live like a bodhisattva, you also begin to change how you see yourself. You no longer ask, "What do I get?" Instead, you begin asking, "What can I give?" This question dissolves the small self and opens a much wider horizon. Some people think that to become a bodhisattva, you must leave ordinary life and wear the robe of a monk. But in truth, the bodhisattva spirit can be practiced right in the middle of modern life. An office worker listening with patience to a stressed colleague. A father staying present with his children instead of just demanding from them. An Uber driver smiling and wishing a passenger a peaceful day. These seemingly small acts are the bodhisattva path in daily life. In modern psychology, this is called altruism. Scientists have found that when people practice altruism, the brain releases oxytocin and endorphins, creating feelings of happiness and reducing anxiety. In this way, the bodhisattva path not only benefits others, but also brings direct biological benefits to the one who practices it. One thing to remember, on the bodhisattva path, there will be moments when you feel tired, even discouraged. That is the time to return to your breath, to your inner stillness. As the Buddha taught, before you can save others, you must learn to rest deeply in yourself. When you nurture your own inner life, your compassion becomes steady and will not be swept away by the suffering of others. Here is a question for reflection. This week, can I transform one of my own pains into an opportunity to help someone else? Maybe you are worried about work. Can you use that experience to listen more deeply to a friend who is also stressed? Maybe you have gone through loss. Can you comfort someone now walking through the same loss? This is the transformation of the bodhisattva, not letting pain become a pit that buries you, but turning it into a bridge to another's heart. When you lie down to sleep, try sending a silent blessing of peace to people you have never met. This is a simple practice of the bodhisattva heart. You do not know where that blessing will travel, but you do know that it has already made your own heart softer. The bodhisattva path is not an easy road, but it is the path that reveals the deepest meaning of life. When you live not only for yourself but also for others, your heart becomes as vast as the sky, and even your sleep becomes more peaceful. For more than 2,500 years, the Four Noble Truths have been regarded as the most essential map of Buddhism. The Buddha gave his very first teaching at Deer Park, called the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the discourse on turning the wheel of Dharma. In it, he laid out four noble truths, like a compass to help humanity find the way beyond suffering. The first truth is dukkha, suffering. Suffering is not only physical pain, but also dissatisfaction, worry, and sorrow woven into every corner of life. Americans may recognize suffering in rising medical bills, in the pressure of balancing work and family, or in the loneliness that lingers even while living in a crowded city. The second truth is samudaya, the cause of suffering. The Buddha pointed out that craving, clinging, and ignorance are the roots of pain. Imagine holding tightly to a burning rope. It is the grasping itself that burns your hand. In the same way, when we cling to success, status, or unrealistic expectations, we are the ones who cause ourselves harm. The third truth is nirodha, the end of suffering. The Buddha affirmed that when we release our clinging, the flames of suffering gradually die out. This is not an escape from life, but a way of living with an open heart, free from the chains of greed and anger. The fourth truth is magga, the path that leads to the end of suffering. This path is the noble eightfold path, with 8 steps like a detailed guide: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. You may think the Four Noble Truths are just an ancient philosophy, but in reality, they are a survival map for modern people. When you fall into a work crisis, suffer from long-term stress, or face loss, the Four Noble Truths give you a way to recognize the problem, understand its cause, trust in transformation, and practice a concrete path. Here is an example from America. A woman working in finance was under constant pressure from sales targets. She often lost sleep, was anxious, and felt her life was meaningless. When she joined a meditation retreat, she learned to look at her pain as the first noble truth, suffering. She realized the root of her suffering was endless craving. From there, she began to let go and started applying mindfulness at work. Within a few months, her anxiety decreased significantly. Modern science also supports this. A study by the National Institutes of Health in the United States found that regular meditation practice can reduce anxiety levels by as much as 40%. When the brain is trained through mindfulness, the regions linked to stress become less active, while the regions linked to peace become more active. You may be wondering, where should I begin? The answer lies in simple practice. Tonight, when you close your eyes to sleep, try acknowledging the first truth, that suffering exists. Do not run away from it. Do not deny it. Simply name the worry in you. This is suffering. Then, observe its cause. Maybe you are clinging to an outcome that has not yet arrived. Maybe you are comparing yourself with someone else. By simply recognizing the cause, you are already one step closer to freedom. The Four Noble Truths do not promise that you will eliminate all suffering at once, but they do give you a map. And when you follow that map, step by step, you will feel yourself becoming lighter, carrying less burden. One important aspect of the Four Noble Truths is their practicality. The Buddha did not simply point out suffering and then abandon humanity. He clearly showed the path out of suffering through the Noble Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is not distant theory. It is concrete steps that can be practiced even in the busyness of modern American life. For example, right view means seeing reality as it truly is. At work, instead of thinking, I must be perfect, otherwise I am a failure, you can see the truth that failure is simply a natural part of learning. When you shift your view, the pressure lessens and you act with more freedom. Right speech means speaking in a wholesome way. In a society where social media is full of criticism and sarcasm, choosing kind speech becomes an act of healing. A sincere word of praise can help a coworker make it through a difficult day. Right livelihood reminds us to choose work that supports us without harming others. This is especially meaningful in an economy where many may feel trapped in jobs that go against their personal values. When your work contributes to well-being, you feel a deeper peace inside. An American man once shared that he left a high-paying job that drained and stressed him to pursue teaching. Though his income was lower, he felt joy watching his students grow. He said, I have never slept so well since changing careers. This is the effect of right livelihood. Another core practice is right mindfulness. In a world flooded with phone notifications, mindfulness is the ability to return to the present moment. Many American companies have even brought mindfulness meditation into their workplace culture, helping employees reduce stress and increase creativity. This shows that teachings from 2,500 years ago are still completely relevant today. The Four Noble Truths also encourage us to share this journey with others. When you tell a friend that you are practicing to face suffering instead of running from it, you not only help yourself but also inspire them. Like a candle, when you light another, your flame does not diminish, it only makes the world brighter. An interesting thing is that many Americans, after learning the Four Noble Truths, said they felt permission not to be perfect. They understood that suffering is a natural part of life, and that recognizing it is what opens the door to healing. You can try practicing tonight. 1. Acknowledge one suffering you are carrying. 2. Ask, what is its deeper cause? 3. Remember that it is possible to end this suffering. 4. Choose one small step from the Eightfold Path. It could be mindful breathing or speaking one kind word. When you do this, you are living in the spirit of the Four Noble Truths. You transform philosophy into lived experience. And each small step brings you closer to inner freedom. Remember, the Four Noble Truths are not just Buddhist teachings. They are a survival map for anyone struggling in the storms of life. When you know you have a map, you no longer feel lost. And as you walk step by step on that map, peace becomes your most loyal companion. On the Buddhist path of practice, samadhi, concentration, is the pillar that steadies the heart amid life's storms. If wisdom is the lamp that lights the way, concentration is the wind that extinguishes the fires of restlessness. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught that dwelling in the breath, in the body, and in feelings is the foundation of concentration. This means that concentration is not some mystical state far away. It begins with the simple ability to sit still and breathe. In modern American life, many people feel like a phone running out of battery. They rush from one task to another, from work to family, from financial responsibilities to complicated relationships. Yet they rarely have a chance to recharge their own spirit. Samadhi is that recharge. A man in California once fell into deep depression after losing his job. He tried medication and therapy, but still felt lost. Until he attended a 10-day meditation retreat, where for the first time he simply sat still and observed his breath. At first, his mind was like a troop of jumping monkeys. But day by day, he began to notice moments of quiet between thoughts. After the retreat, he said, "I never knew silence could be so healing." Concentration does not remove all anxiety, but it gives you space so anxiety does not swallow you whole. Just as waves may rise on the ocean's surface, the depth of the sea remains calm. Samadhi is that depth within your mind. Neuroscience also confirms this effect. Brain scans show that with regular meditation, the area linked to stress, the amygdala, actually shrinks, while the regions connected to focus and emotional regulation grow stronger. In other words, concentration literally reshapes the brain, making you more resilient under pressure. Samadhi is like training a muscle. You cannot expect to sit down one day and immediately reach deep concentration. It takes patience, repetition, and gradual practice. But the reward is priceless, a steady heart, not easily carried away by winds of restlessness. Try a small practice right now. Sit down and close your eyes. Breathing in, know that you are breathing in. Breathing out, know that you are breathing out. When thoughts arise, do not chase them away and do not cling to them. Let them come and go like clouds drifting across the sky. Gradually, you will notice the space between thoughts, and that is the seed of samadhi. Some people worry that meditation is an escape from reality, but in truth, samadhi helps us live more fully in reality. When you have concentration, you listen to others more clearly, you make wiser decisions, and you react with less impulsiveness. These are skills essential not only on the spiritual path, but also in work and family life. A woman in Texas shared that before, whenever her child grew angry, she would yell back, which only created more tension at home. After practicing just 15 minutes of meditation each day, she discovered she could pause, take a breath, and respond calmly. As a result, her relationship with her child became more gentle and open. This is the very practical power of samadhi in daily life. Samadhi is not about running away from the world. It is about learning to stand firm within it. When your mind is like a rock anchored in a river, the waves may crash against it, but the rock remains unmoved. Ask yourself, have I ever tried to build concentration within me? If the answer is no, then tonight, before going to bed, spend just 5 minutes sitting quietly, following your breath. You may find that those 5 minutes can change not only your sleep, but even your tomorrow. Samadhi is inner endurance. It gives you the strength not to be toppled by sudden challenges. And on this 3-hour journey through Buddhist teachings, Samadhi is the step that helps you keep balance, so you can move deeper into the ocean of wisdom and compassion. In the treasure of Buddhist scriptures, the Heart Sutra is one of the shortest, yet also one of the deepest. With only a little more than 260 Chinese characters, it has inspired millions of practitioners for over 2,000 years. The unique point of the Heart Sutra lies in its closing mantra: Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha. Translated, it means go, go, go beyond, go completely beyond, arrive at enlightenment, welcome. This mantra is not just a sound to chant. It is an invitation to cross over uncertainty, to move beyond this shore of worry and fear, and to step onto the far shore of freedom. In modern life, we often feel stuck on this shore, the shore of unpaid bills, the shore of broken relationships, the shore of fear about the future. The Heart Sutra reminds us, you can cross over. An American woman shared that when facing cancer, she turned to the Heart Sutra. Each night, she chanted, Gate, Gate, as a reminder, keep going, even when the road ahead is uncertain. She said that the illness did not vanish, but the fear softened. She felt she could embrace each remaining day with calmness. Interestingly, science is also beginning to explore the effects of mantra, sacred sound. A study at Yale University found that repeating a mantra during meditation reduces activity in the brain's anxiety centers and strengthens emotional stability. In other words, when you chant, the brain truly settles into stillness. The Heart Sutra also reminds us of emptiness. Form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Everything we see is only a web of conditions without an independent essence. When we realize this, we cling less, and we worry less when things change. In today's America, many young people feel uncertain about their future careers. A student graduating during an economic crisis might ask, will I ever find a job? Learning the spirit of the Heart Sutra, he can realize that his identity is not fixed to one role. Even failure is only part of the flow, not the final sentence. Try a simple practice. When your mind feels tangled, close your eyes and whisper, Gate, Gate, Paragate. Let each word be like a step, guiding you out of the spiral of anxiety, walking you closer to spaciousness. Have you ever felt trapped in a whirlpool of thoughts, unable to escape? Imagine that each time you say gate, you are stepping out of that whirlpool. One small step, but each one bringing you closer to the shore of peace. Some people ask, if the Heart Sutra only speaks of emptiness, then does life still have meaning? The answer lies in the very experience of chanting. When you utter each word, Gate, Gate, Paragate, you are not denying life. You are simply letting go of the illusion that life is fixed and unchanging. Because of this, you can love more deeply, knowing that everything is fragile and precious. A businessman in Chicago once lived under unbearable stress. He feared losing contracts, feared bankruptcy, feared losing face with his family. When he encountered the Heart Sutra, he realized that all the things he feared were only conditions arising and passing. Sitting down and quietly repeating Paragate, he felt as though he stepped through a doorway into a vast sky. The worries did not vanish immediately, but they no longer chained him the way they once had. In a sense, the Heart Sutra is like a lullaby for the restless mind. When you repeat the mantra, its steady rhythm becomes a current, carrying you away from the noise and confusion. Like the sound of ocean waves, the mantra returns the mind to its natural state, calm and deep. Another study at the University of California showed that when participants practiced mantra meditation daily for 8 weeks, they reported significant stress reduction and clear improvement in sleep quality. This explains why many people chant the Heart Sutra before bed and find their sleep becoming deeper and more restful. You can try this tonight. When you lie down, instead of letting your mind drift with worries, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and whisper, "Gate." As you exhale, whisper, "Paragate." Each breath becomes a bridge, carrying you to the shore of stillness. The beautiful thing about the Heart Sutra is its universality. It does not belong to one religion or one culture. Anyone, anywhere, can find comfort in this mantra. It is like a shared reminder. We all have the ability to cross uncertainty. We all have the capacity to find inner freedom. Ask yourself, on which shore am I stuck in my life? Perhaps the shore of financial worry. Perhaps the shore of loneliness. Perhaps the shore of fear of loss. The Heart Sutra offers you a bridge. And each time you chant "Gate," you place another stone on that bridge. The path to enlightenment is not a miraculous leap. It is each small step, each breath, each mantra. And as you keep walking, you discover that the far shore is not far away at all. It is right within your own heart, waiting for you to return. As we close this section, silently chant once more in your mind, "Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha." Let this mantra flow like a gentle stream through your sleep, carrying with it peace and strength to face tomorrow. In the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, or community, is indispensable. If the Buddha is the teacher who shows the way, and the Dharma is the map, then the Sangha is the companions who walk the path with you. Sangha is not only the community of monks and nuns in a monastery. In a broader sense, Sangha is any group of people who come together to cultivate awareness and compassion. It might be an online meditation group in America, a small neighborhood circle, or just a few friends practicing mindfulness together. The Buddha once said that having a friend on the path is already having half of the path. When we have companions with the same aspiration, we feel less lonely, less lost, and more motivated to continue. In today's world, many Americans feel lonely even while having hundreds of friends on social media. They may post a picture and receive dozens of likes, yet still have no one to truly confide in. This is why Sangha has become more important than ever. It is a spiritual support network that helps us feel we belong to something greater than ourselves. Here is one story. During the pandemic, a group in New York created an online Sangha. Each week, they met on Zoom, meditated for 20 minutes, and shared their experiences. One member said, "Just knowing that people on the other side of the screen were also sitting quietly and breathing with me made me feel so much stronger." Sangha is also where we learn humility. Walking alone, we easily fall into the trap of thinking we already know it all. But when we sit in a circle and listen to the stories of others, we realize we are just a small part of a much greater river. Each person brings a different perspective, and through that, we grow. Social science also confirms the power of community. Studies show that people with strong social connections have better health, lower rates of depression, and longer lifespans. In other words, Sangha nourishes not only the spirit, but also the body. There is a beautiful metaphor. If you light a single match in the wind, it can be blown out instantly. But if you have a bundle of torches burning together, the wind cannot extinguish them all. The Sangha is that bundle of torches. One individual may be fragile, but the community is resilient and enduring. Think back. Have you ever felt uplifted by a community? Maybe it was a group of friends who shared your struggles. Maybe it was a yoga class you attended regularly. Or maybe it was simply a friend who texted to check on you when you were silent for too long. That too is a form of Sangha in everyday life. One special aspect of Sangha is reflection. When we are alone, our bad habits can hide without us noticing. But in community, we have a mirror to see ourselves. It might be when someone gently reminds you that your voice is rising, or when you witness a friend listening with patience and you learn to be more patient yourself. Sangha is the environment that nurtures growth through interaction. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once said that having a good spiritual friend is the whole of the holy life. This means that with Sangha, you already have a strong foundation for practice. Because when you collapse, it is the Sangha that lifts you up. When you lose heart, it is the Sangha that gives you strength to go on. Here is an example from American life. A veteran returning from war struggled with haunting memories of PTSD. He joined a small meditation group. At first he stayed silent, but after a few sessions, seeing others share their pain, he began to open his heart. Gradually, the nightmares eased. He said that what healed him was not only meditation, but the feeling of being in a circle of acceptance, a true Sangha. This is also confirmed by modern psychology. Group therapy is often shown to be more effective than individual therapy in many cases, precisely because of the community factor. When we know we are not alone, we gain the strength to move forward. Another beautiful image. Sangha is like a circle of people meditating together. When one person loses mindfulness, the others continue breathing steadily, and their presence is like a lighthouse guiding that person back. The power of the collective creates a field of calm that one individual could hardly generate alone. So how can you build your own Sangha? It can begin very simply. Invite a friend to sit quietly and breathe with you for 5 minutes each week. Join an online meditation group, or simply share a short teaching or a Dharma story with someone who needs it. Each small step contributes to creating Sangha. Remember that Sangha is not a perfect place. In community, there will be conflict and disagreement. But it is precisely through facing and overcoming differences that we learn tolerance and truly cultivate compassion. Here is a question for reflection. Who is my Sangha in this life? You may never have called them by that name, but surely there are people who held your hand when you were falling. Be grateful for them, because no one reaches awakening alone. When you lie down to sleep, imagine yourself in a vast circle, where thousands of people are also breathing with you, listening with you, and silently praying for you. That is the invisible Sangha, always present. And when you feel this, you realize you are no longer alone. You belong to an ocean of love. Time, a concept that seems so obvious, yet it is often the greatest burden of human life. Each day, we wake to alarms, work by schedules, and worry that time is slipping away too fast. Buddhism teaches that it is our clinging to the idea of time that makes us suffer. In the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha said, "The past mind cannot be grasped, the present mind cannot be grasped, the future mind cannot be grasped." In other words, the past is gone and cannot be held, the future has not yet come and cannot be caught, and even the present is only a continuous flow. When we try to lock time into a frame, we create a heavy burden for ourselves. Americans often feel the pressure of aging very strongly. A culture that values productivity, appearance, and success makes many fear growing old. Anti-aging ads, retirement plans, workplace performance charts, all of them remind us that the clock is always ticking. Buddhist philosophy offers another way of seeing. Time is not the enemy, but the teacher that reminds us to live fully. One example: an elderly man in Florida once feared that aging would turn him into a burden. But when he joined a meditation group for seniors, he learned to release his attachment to the image of being a strong man. He said, "When I accepted that I will grow old and weak, I began to enjoy the smallest moments, like the morning sunlight or the sound of birds outside my window." This is the freedom that comes from letting go of a fixed idea of time. Modern science also shows that people who practice mindfulness, that is, living fully in the present, tend to live longer. A 10-year study revealed that meditation reduces the risk of heart disease and lengthens average lifespan. This confirms the teaching that when we let go of worry about past and future, both body and mind become healthier. Think about yourself. How many times have you blamed yourself for something in the past or feared something that has not yet come? The truth is, the past is closed, the future is unopened, and only the present is the doorway to live. A meditation teacher once compared the present to a dewdrop on a leaf. It glimmers, beautiful, but vanishes when the sun rises. Precisely because it is fragile, it is precious. If we keep looking toward tomorrow, we miss the dewdrop right before our eyes. Time also teaches us impermanence. Every moment passes, every person changes. When we accept this truth, fear falls away. Instead, we cherish each instant. A family dinner is no longer a dull routine, but a treasure. A phone call to a friend is no longer postponed because we know both our time and theirs are limited. Try a small exercise. Today, when your clock rings to signal a task, instead of rushing off, pause for a few seconds. Take one deep breath and remind yourself, this moment is enough. Just a few seconds, but it may change the way you see your whole day. Here is a question to reflect on. If I knew I only had 1 year to live, how would I change the way I use my time? This question is not meant to plant fear, but to awaken you from delay. The Buddhist view of time does not ask you to abandon all plans or live carelessly. On the contrary, it encourages you to arrange life with awareness that time is finite. And it is precisely this finiteness that makes each action, each word, each moment sacred. When you go to bed tonight, remember that this day will never return. But if you have lived it with full presence, it remains forever in your heart as part of the stream of meaning. The Buddhist wisdom of letting go of time frees us from being haunted by the clock. It gives us the freedom to slow down, to savor, and to love more deeply. And when we do this, our sleep also becomes deeper, because the mind is no longer pulled tight by regrets of the past or fears of the future. In Buddhism, the image of the hungry ghost is a powerful symbol of desire that can never be satisfied. These beings are often depicted with huge bellies but tiny throats. No matter how much they drink, it is never enough. No matter how much they eat, they are never full. It is a metaphor for the human mind when consumed by greed. In modern American life, the hungry ghost is not just a figure from distant mythology. It shows up in shopping addictions, in the endless chase for the newest gadgets, in obsession with fame and power. People believe that if they could just have one more item, one more paycheck, one more round of applause, then they would finally be happy. But once they get it, the emptiness returns, and the hunger grows even stronger. A woman in New York shared that whenever she felt bored or sad, she would rush out to shop. Her closet became crammed with clothes she never wore more than once. But the joy of each shopping spree lasted only a few hours, leaving behind an even bigger emptiness. She said, "I realized I was just like the hungry ghost, eating and never being full." In the Sutra of Ghosts, the Buddha described how these beings are constantly burned by fire in their stomachs. That fire does not come from outside, but from their own craving and clinging. When we let desire control us, life becomes an endless cycle of hunger and thirst. Modern psychology agrees with this view. Research shows that when people reach a material goal, happiness rises briefly, but soon returns to its previous level, a phenomenon called the hedonic treadmill. The more we chase, the more empty we feel, just like hungry ghosts who can never be satisfied. But Buddhism does not present the hungry ghost image to frighten us. It is a mirror for us to see ourselves. Ask yourself, what craving is controlling me? What hunger in my heart never seems to be filled? It might be the hunger for recognition, the hunger for control, or the hunger for wealth beyond what you truly need. Another example, an American businessman was obsessed with expanding his company, signing more contracts, earning more profit. Though wealthier than most, he never felt it was enough. Then, when illness came, he realized that no amount of money could buy health or genuine love. He said, "I had been feeding the hungry ghost inside me for decades, and it was never full." Hungry ghosts also appear in more subtle addictions, the addiction to attention on social media. A young man in California admitted that he checked his phone hundreds of times a day to count the number of likes. Each like was like a grain of rice falling into the tiny throat of a hungry ghost, never enough to ease the hunger. Looking at this, we see that hungry ghosts are not just Eastern mythology, they are a very modern reality. And they raise an important question: how can we free ourselves from this endless hunger? To be free from the fate of the hungry ghost, the Buddha taught that the key lies in contentment and letting go. When we learn to pause, to appreciate what we already have, the fire of greed gradually dies down. A man in Seattle was once addicted to online shopping. He ordered something almost every day until his credit cards were buried in debt. When he began practicing mindfulness, he tried a simple exercise. Every time he wanted to buy something, he took 3 breaths and asked himself, "Do I truly need this? Or is it just the hungry ghost inside me crying out?" The result was that more than half the time he was able to stop himself, and after a few months, the unconscious habit of shopping faded away. In Buddhism, generosity is the medicine for the hungry ghost. When we give, we are no longer trapped in the hunger to possess. A woman in America, after her divorce, chose to volunteer at a soup kitchen for the homeless. She shared that when she saw the grateful smiles of those receiving meals, she felt a fullness that years of luxury shopping had never brought. Science also confirms this. Studies show that acts of giving activate the brain to release oxytocin, the hormone that creates lasting feelings of connection and happiness. Meanwhile, only receiving without giving often increases feelings of loneliness and anxiety. The hungry ghost also teaches us the lesson of impermanence. When we recognize that everything changes, we no longer cling so tightly. A new car eventually becomes old. A job title eventually changes. A relationship may fade. If we believe these are the only sources of happiness, we will always suffer. But when we know that happiness lies in awareness and compassion, the hungry ghost within us loses its power. Try a small exercise for yourself. Each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They can be very simple: a plain meal, an honest conversation, or just a deep breath in the morning. When you train your mind to see abundance, the hungry ghost inside you grows weaker. Here is a question for reflection. What am I trying to stuff into the emptiness in my heart, when what that emptiness really needs is love and mindfulness? When you answer this question honestly, you will know what you need to give instead of what you are trying to cling to. The hungry ghost reminds us that greed never brings fullness. Only letting go, contentment, and compassion can truly set us free. And when you fall asleep in that spirit, your dreams are no longer haunted by lack, but become a peaceful river nourishing the heart. When people hear the word art, they often think of painting, music, or literature. But in Buddhism, Dharma art is not only about aesthetic products. It is the way we transform suffering into creative material, turning wounds into doors that open toward wisdom. In the Tibetan tradition, there is a unique form of art, the sand mandala. Monks spend days, even weeks, carefully placing colored grains of sand into intricate patterns. But once it is finished, they immediately sweep it away, dissolving all that effort. Why? Because in that very act of dismantling, they remind themselves and others of impermanence, that no matter how beautiful something is, it cannot last forever. That is Dharma art, creating in order to let go, not to possess. In modern American life, many people also learn to transform pain into art. A veteran returning from war struggled with PTSD. Instead of letting the trauma devour him, he began to paint. His paintings were not only therapy for himself, but also inspiration for others. He shared, "I do not paint to forget the pain. I paint to face it and to turn it into beauty." In Zen, there is a saying, "When you suffer, sit down and sing." This is not a strange suggestion, but a deep insight. When we use song, dance, or writing to express our inner world, we are no longer prisoners of it. We become creators, not victims. Modern psychology calls this art therapy. Studies show that when people use art to express emotions, levels of anxiety and depression drop significantly. One American study found that veterans who engaged in art therapy reduced PTSD symptoms by up to 40%. This is evidence that Dharma art is not only spiritual, but also has practical therapeutic value. A woman in America who lost her husband turned to journaling each night. She wrote about her grief, her anger, her loneliness. But slowly, through her words, she discovered gratitude and forgiveness. She said, "I realized that writing did not make me lose my husband again. It helped me find myself again." That is Dharma art in action. Dharma art also shows up in the smallest actions. A father shared that every evening, instead of just putting his child to bed, he and his child would draw a little picture together. Some nights it was just scribbles, but it became a healing moment for them both. He said, "Art helped me reconnect with my child, and it also helped me let go of the stress from a long day." The important thing is that Dharma art is not about escaping pain. It invites us to face it, to look directly at it, and to transform it into creativity. When we paint, write, sing, or walk mindfully, we are not trying to erase the wound. We are simply giving it a new form to exist, one that heals instead of destroys. Another important aspect of Dharma art is presence. When we create with mindfulness, each brushstroke, each note of music, each written line becomes a meditation. In that moment, the outcome is no longer as important as the process itself. A group of American college students once joined a mindful painting class. The teacher asked them to close their eyes, take deep breaths, and only then touch the brush to paper. No one knew what their paintings would look like, but every stroke became a footprint of the present moment. After class, many said it was the first time they felt light and free, because they no longer carried the pressure to create something beautiful. They simply enjoyed the act of creating. This is the spirit of Dharma art, turning every action into an opportunity to come back to yourself. Washing dishes mindfully is also art. Writing a letter with compassion is also art. Dharma art also reminds us that creativity does not need to be perfect. A Zen master once said, "Beauty does not lie in perfection, it lies in authenticity." When you write a clumsy but sincere poem, it carries more healing power than a polished piece that is hollow inside. In today's world, where everything is easily commercialized, Dharma art is an invitation to return to simplicity. You do not need an exhibition, you do not need tickets to sell. You only need to allow yourself to express, to let your pain find a creative form, and you are already practicing Dharma art. A retired American teacher began learning pottery. He said, "When my hands touch the clay, I feel that I too am being reshaped, softer, more patient." None of his pots were perfect, but to him, they were proof of letting go of perfectionism and finding peace in the act of creation. Science also affirms the benefits of creativity. Many studies show that when people engage in artistic activity, the brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to joy and motivation. This is why journaling, painting, or playing music can improve mental health. Ask yourself, what pain in my life could I transform into Dharma art? It might be a loss you have not yet faced. It might be the quiet stress of work. Instead of running away, give it a form of expression. Write a poem, shape a small figure, or simply draw a few scribbles. The miracle is that when you do this, you not only heal yourself, but you may inspire others. An imperfect painting can still make someone smile. A personal piece of writing can still help someone feel less alone. That is the ripple effect of Dharma art. When you go to bed tonight, remember that every wound, every tear, can become creative material. You do not need to erase pain to find peace. You only need to turn it into a song, a mindful breath, a kind action. And in doing so, you are shaping your very life into a Dharma masterpiece. On the Bodhisattva path, there are 6 radiant jewels called the paramitas. They are the perfections that help us cross from the shore of delusion to the shore of awakening. And the beautiful truth is this: the 6 paramitas are not only for monks in monasteries. Anyone in everyday life can practice them. The first paramita is generosity, or dana. This is not just about giving money. It is about giving time, giving listening, giving love. A mother in America who patiently reads to her child every night, even when exhausted after a long day, that too is generosity. When we learn to give without expecting return, we free ourselves from selfishness and nourish a deeper joy. The second paramita is morality, or sila. Keeping ethical precepts means keeping life clean and safe. For an American, this could be as simple as choosing honesty at work, not cutting corners to climb faster. When we live by principle, the heart feels lighter, and even our sleep becomes more peaceful. The third paramita is patience, or kshanti. In a society that rushes constantly, patience is a rare gift. A driver stuck in Los Angeles traffic who chooses not to honk angrily, but instead plays meditation, music, and smiles, that is patience. Patience is not weakness, it is strength, the power not to be swept away by collective anger. The fourth paramita is effort, or virya. It is steady energy, the refusal to give up. A college student in America who works full-time but still dedicates 10 minutes every morning to meditation, that is effort. Small actions, repeated day after day, build lasting strength that carries us far. The fifth parameter is meditation or dhyana. It is the capacity to settle, to master the mind. When a nurse in a stressful shift pauses to take 3 deep breaths before entering a patient's room, that is meditation. Meditation is not only sitting on a cushion, it can be present in any ordinary moment. The sixth parameter is wisdom or prajna. It is the pinnacle, the light that illuminates every action. Wisdom is not just book knowledge, but the ability to see impermanence, non-self, and let go. A woman who, after losing her husband, did not drown forever in grief because she saw that death is also part of the river of life, that is the parameter of wisdom. When the 6 parameters come together, our life becomes a strong boat to cross the ocean of suffering. We may not practice them perfectly all the time, but day by day, little by little, we will notice true transformation. Modern psychology mirrors the parameters under different names: altruism, ethics, resilience, perseverance, mindfulness skills, and emotional intelligence. All of these are tied to mental health and long-term happiness. Ask yourself, which parameter do I need to cultivate most right now? Maybe you need to practice patience at home. Maybe you need perseverance to keep up a good habit like meditation. Or maybe you need more generosity, not with money, but with an encouraging word. Here is a small practice. Choose one parameter to live this week. If you choose generosity, prepare a meal to share with a homeless person. If you choose patience, take 3 deep breaths before replying to criticism. Every small action is one step on the bodhisattva path. When you walk the path of the 6 parameters, you do not just change yourself. You influence your family, your community, even your society. Just as one candle can light an entire room, one act of parameter can radiate and guide many others. And as you go to bed tonight, choose one parameter to whisper in your heart. Today I will practice patience, or tomorrow I will plant the seed of generosity. That small vow will travel into your dreams, nourishing you with the strength of compassion and wisdom. In Buddhism, meditation does not only happen on the cushion. Walking meditation, moving in mindfulness, is a practice that unites body and mind, so that each step becomes a doorway into peace. The Buddha once taught that when you walk, know that you are walking. It sounds simple, but in reality, how often do we walk while our minds are somewhere else? In America, many people walk through the park while staring at their phones, worrying about work, or listening to the endless news cycle. The body walks, but the mind does not walk with it. Walking meditation invites the mind to return to the body. When the foot touches the ground, we feel the earth holding us. When the breath flows with each step, we see that life is pulsing in every cell. Each step becomes a silent thank you offered to existence. A woman in America who lost a loved one shared that walking meditation helped her move through grief. At first, every step was heavy, her tears falling onto the path. But gradually, she began to feel the gentleness of the breeze, the steadiness of the earth. She said, "Even though my heart was broken, the ground still carried me in each step, and I knew I was never truly alone." In the Satipatthana Sutra, the Buddha instructed, "When walking forward, one knows they are walking forward. When walking back, one knows they are walking back." This means that any movement can become meditation as long as there is awareness. Modern research confirms the benefits of walking meditation. A study in the United States found that people who practiced mindful walking in a park for 30 minutes a day experienced significant reductions in stress and improvements in sleep quality. Walking meditation steadies the heartbeat, lowers blood pressure, and stimulates the brain to release endorphins, the chemicals that bring happiness. Walking meditation is also a way to bring mindfulness into a busy life. You can practice while walking from your car to the office or while taking your dog for a stroll. The important thing is not the location, but the attitude of awareness. A man in Boston shared that every morning he walked 10 minutes to the subway station. Instead of rushing, he turned it into walking meditation. He slowed his steps, aligning them with his breathing. After just a few weeks, he found himself less irritable at work and sleeping better at night. Walking meditation also has the power to heal communities. In many American cities, meditation groups have organized mindful walking sessions in parks. When a group of people walk slowly together, in silence, focusing only on breath and step, that collective energy radiates peace, even to those who simply happen to pass by. One of the unique gifts of walking meditation is that it connects body and mind in every step. When we sit in meditation, the mind can sometimes drift into thoughts. But when we walk in mindfulness, each step becomes an anchor, holding us in the present moment. A famous Zen master once told his students, "Walk as if you are kissing the earth with your feet." The words sound poetic, yet they are deeply practical. When we walk with gratitude, each step becomes an act of love for this planet and for ourselves. In collective walking meditation, the energy of dozens, even hundreds of people moving slowly and silently together creates a sacred atmosphere. Many Americans who joined such events said they felt a profound peace, even though they had never meditated before. They shared that simply walking with others made their minds slow down and soften. Walking meditation can also become therapy for those living with trauma. A study in the United States found that patients with depression who practiced mindful walking in nature showed significant improvement in symptoms. As they walked slowly on the grass, noticed the trees, and breathed in fresh air, their minds began to settle, as if nature itself was embracing them. A young mother shared that after giving birth, she fell into postpartum anxiety. Each day, she gave herself 10 minutes to push her baby's stroller in mindful walking. At first, the steps felt heavy, but gradually she began to sense her child's heartbeat, the song of birds, the touch of sunlight on her skin. She said, "Those steps pulled me out of the darkness and gave me hope." The beauty of walking meditation is that it does not require long hours or complicated skills. Just 5 to 10 minutes a day, whether in your neighborhood or in the hallway of your office, can become a deep practice. Try this simple exercise. As you walk, breathe in a rhythm of 3 to 3. Inhale, take 3 steps. Exhale, take 3 steps. Each rhythm becomes a quiet song of body and mind. When the mind wanders, gently guide it back to your feet. Here is a question for reflection. Have I ever truly walked? Not walking to reach a destination, but walking simply to enjoy the journey. If not, then today could be your very first time. And tonight, as you fall asleep, imagine yourself walking down a peaceful path, each step held by the earth, each breath a blessing of peace. Let the energy of walking meditation follow you into your dreams, where body and mind continue to heal together. In Buddhism, there is a profound practice called maranasati, mindfulness of death. For many people, death is taboo, something they avoid. But the Buddha taught that reflecting on death actually helps us live more meaningfully and awake. In America, the culture often tries to avoid death. People hide their age, use many ways to delay the decline of the body, and often avoid talking about death, even within the family. Yet the truth is, Death is always present, in every breath, in every cycle of nature. The Buddha once told his disciples, "With every breath in and out, death may come. The wise must reflect on this often, so as not to waste their lives." This teaching is not meant to create fear, but to awaken us from forgetfulness. An American patient facing late-stage cancer shared that when he began practicing mindfulness of death, fear slowly gave way to gratitude for each day of life. He said, "Before, I thought I was immortal. Now, every morning I open my eyes and smile, because I have one more day to love." Mindfulness of death reminds us that we do not have time to waste. How many times have we delayed an apology? How many times have we missed the chance to say, "I love you"? When we realize death can come at any moment, procrastination no longer rules our lives. One everyday example. After losing her best friend in a car accident, a woman began keeping a journal titled, "If Today Were My Last Day." Every morning, she wrote down the most important thing she wanted to do that day. The result was that she stopped wasting time on meaningless things and focused on love and kindness instead. Psychology also shows that facing death can actually strengthen our sense of life. A study in the United States found that people who regularly reflect on the finite nature of life report higher life satisfaction and are less likely to engage in meaningless behavior. In other words, mindfulness of death does not make us pessimistic. It helps us live more fully. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha emphasized that even monks must remind themselves of death often. Because when we forget this truth, we fall into the illusion that we still have endless time, and so we waste each precious moment. Try this practice. Every night before you sleep, whisper to yourself, "This day will never return." Then ask, "Have I lived this day with meaning?" That small question can change the way you see your entire life. One of the greatest benefits of reflecting on death is that it helps us reorder our priorities in life. When we remember that we will die, we see what truly matters, not the luxury car, the big house, or the fame, but the genuine moments with those we love and the peace within our own hearts. A doctor in Texas once shared that his terminal patients rarely mentioned their possessions. What they regretted most was not spending enough time with family, not living true to themselves, and not forgiving old wounds. Mindfulness of death, then, is an early reminder. Do not wait until the very end to live authentically. In Buddhism, there are practices that reflect directly on death, such as meditating on corpses in a cemetery. It may sound harsh, but the purpose is not to create fear. It is to shatter the illusion of immortality. When we see that the body is only a combination of earth, water, fire, and air, we no longer cling so tightly to this limited self. In the United States, many hospice programs now use mindfulness practices to help patients accept death with more ease. One woman said, "When I reflect that death is natural, I no longer see myself as a victim. I see myself as returning to the vast embrace of life itself." Science is also beginning to study death awareness. Research shows that people who regularly contemplate death tend to live with more compassion, enjoy the present moment more, and act less violently. In this way, mindfulness of death not only benefits individuals, but also contributes to a more peaceful society. Here is a simple practice you can try. Each morning, before starting your day, remind yourself, "Today could be my last." Let this not cause worry, but inspire you. If today were your last, how would you live differently? Whom would you call? What words of love would you say? Whom would you forgive? A deeper question to reflect on. If I knew for certain I had only 1 year left to live, what would I change immediately? That question can be a compass, guiding you to live more truthfully with yourself. Maranasati does not make us pessimistic, it gives us freedom. Freedom from petty conflicts, from meaningless races. When we know that time is finite, we no longer want to waste it on anger or jealousy. We choose to love, to forgive, and to live authentically. And when you go to bed tonight, whisper, "If this night were my last, have I lived this day fully?" If the answer is yes, you will drift into sleep with a gentle smile. If the answer is no, then tomorrow will be another chance to begin again, more awake, more meaningful. In Buddhism, one of the most basic yet profound steps is taking refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These three precious gems are the foundation, the steady ground that helps us cross the ocean of suffering. Taking refuge in the Buddha does not mean worshipping a powerful deity. It is the recognition that enlightenment is real and that every one of us has the capacity to awaken the Buddha nature within. When we say, "I take refuge in the Buddha," we remind ourselves that we are not powerless. Inside us lies the seed of wisdom and compassion, ready to bloom. Taking refuge in the Dharma means relying on the path of truth that the Buddha revealed. The Dharma is the teaching of impermanence, non-self, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path. When life becomes chaotic, the Dharma is like a map, guiding us out of confusion. Taking refuge in the Sangha is returning to the community of practice. As we saw earlier, the Sangha is a network of support that helps us walk further on the path of awakening. One person may stumble, but the community lifts us up and keeps us moving. In America, where many people live with loneliness, the three jewels can be a precious spiritual refuge. A man in California once shared that after losing his wife, his whole life seemed to collapse. But when he joined a meditation center and took refuge in the three jewels, he found a new family. He said, "I know I'm not alone. I have a teacher, I have companions on the path, and I have a clear direction to follow." In the Refuge Sutra, the Buddha emphasized that the three jewels are not only external objects of devotion, they are living energies within us. The Buddha lives in our hearts, the Dharma is our mindful breath, and the Sangha is anyone who practices alongside us. When we realize this, we see that we always have a home to return to, no matter where we are. Modern psychology also confirms the importance of a spiritual anchor. Studies show that people with strong faith and supportive spiritual communities are more resilient after crises and less prone to depression. Taking refuge in the three jewels is one form of such an anchor. A middle-aged woman in America shared that whenever she feels stressed, she silently recites, "I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha." She said, "With just these three short sentences, I feel like I'm standing on solid ground, no longer shaken." You can try this practice tonight. Before sleeping, place your hand on your heart and softly whisper the three refuges. No elaborate ritual is needed, only sincerity. You may find your mind settling because you know you always have a sacred place to lean on. A question for reflection: in this fragile life, what am I truly leaning on? If you rely only on money, fame, or other fragile things, you can easily collapse. But if you rely on the three jewels, wisdom, compassion, and community, you will have a foundation no storm can shake. Taking refuge in the three jewels is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. Every time you choose forgiveness over anger, you are taking refuge in the Dharma. Every time you choose to sit quietly and listen instead of chasing noise, you are taking refuge in the Sangha. And every time you trust that you carry the capacity for awakening within, you are taking refuge in the Buddha. The three jewels are an inexhaustible refuge. When you fall asleep in that refuge, your sleep itself becomes a homecoming, a return to stability, clarity, and boundless love. One of the deepest truths of Buddhism is anatta, non-self. This teaching shows us that there is no fixed, permanent I. Everything we call me, the body, emotions, thoughts, and memories, is only a collection of changing elements. In the Discourse on Non-Self, the Buddha said, "This is not mine, this is not me, this is not myself." When we see this clearly, we can put down the heavy burden of ego and discover inner freedom. In modern American society, where the self is glorified through achievements, fame, and social media images, the teaching of non-self is a powerful antidote. People often define themselves by their jobs. I am a doctor, I am a business owner, I am a success. But when the job is lost, when retirement comes, or when failure strikes, that self-image collapses, and with it, a deep crisis. Non-self reminds us that these labels are temporary, not our true essence. A man in New York was laid off after 20 years at a large corporation. He fell into depression, believing his worth was tied to his title and salary. Through the teaching of non-self, he slowly realized that his identity was not limited to his career. He began volunteering with non-profit groups, discovering new joy and a sense of connection. He said, "I realized I am not my job, I am much more than that." Non-self also frees us from clinging to appearance. In a culture obsessed with beauty, many suffer as their bodies change with age. But when we understand that the body is only a combination of the four elements, earth, water, air, and fire, we no longer see it as the essence of me. The body changes, but our value does not disappear. Neuroscience also supports this teaching. Researchers show that the so-called self is simply the result of many brain regions working together. There is no single central controller. During meditation, activity in the brain's default mode network, the system tied to self-referential thinking, decreases. This is why people often feel less trapped by ego and more connected to the world around them. A middle-aged American woman shared that when she began practicing non-self, her relationships with her husband and children improved dramatically. Before, she would insist, "I'm right, you're wrong." But as she let go of ego, she could listen more, accept differences, and family conflicts softened. She said, "When I released my ego, I received love in return." Non-self does not mean denying our existence. On the contrary, it helps us see that we are not separate from the rest of life. When we no longer cling to a separate I, we realize we are part of a great river where people, beings, and all phenomena are connected. And in that very connection, we find strength and peace. One of the greatest benefits of practicing non-self is freedom from the suffering of comparison. In America, many people constantly compare their income, houses, looks, or achievements with others. Each time, the ego speaks, "I'm less than," or "I'm better than." But both bring unease. When we see non-self, we realize there is no fixed me to measure. Each person is only a temporary combination of countless conditions. No one is the same. No one needs to win over another. A man once addicted to social media admitted he felt drained by comparing himself to others every day. After learning about non-self, he limited his time online and spent more hours meditating and walking in nature. He said, "I began to see that I don't need to be somebody. Just being present, breathing, and living is enough." Non-self also frees us from the weight of the past. How many times have we defined ourselves by old mistakes? "I'm a failure. I'm someone who was betrayed." Through non-self, we realize those memories are not fixed identities. They are simply fragments in the ever-changing river of life. We can learn from them, but we don't have to be imprisoned by them. In the sutras, the Buddha used the image of a river to describe human beings. No one can bathe twice in the same river, for the water has changed. In the same way, you are never the same self as yesterday. Realizing this, you can release self-blame and open to the freshness of each moment. Modern psychology calls this self-compassion, the practice of being kind to yourself. When we stop clinging to ego, it becomes easier to forgive mistakes and treat ourselves with gentleness. Research shows that self-compassion reduces depression, increases resilience, and improves relationships with others. A woman in California once lived in deep shame because of her past addiction. Through meditation and the teaching of non-self, she gradually realized her past did not define her entire being. She could choose to plant new seeds in the present. She said, "I am no longer the ego of yesterday. I am a human being in motion, and I have the right to begin again." Practicing non-self also opens the door to unconditional love. As the ego shrinks, compassion expands. We begin to see others not as separate them, but as part of ourselves. From there, forgiveness and empathy flow naturally. A question for reflection: which self-image am I clinging to the most? Perhaps it is, "I must succeed," or "I must be strong." If you dare to put it down, you may feel immense relief, like taking off a tight shirt you've worn for too long. Tonight, before you sleep, whisper gently, "I am not just labels, I am a vast, flowing stream of life." Let the wisdom of non-self cradle you into rest, so you are no longer chained by a small ego, but instead feel yourself belonging to the wide universe of being. In many traditions, doubt is often seen as the enemy of faith. But in Buddhism, doubt is not an absolute obstacle. It can become a gateway to wisdom. The Buddha once taught in the Kalama Sutta, "Do not believe just because something is handed down. Do not believe simply because it is written in scripture. Do not believe out of tradition. Observe, experience, and if something brings peace and freedom, then practice it." This teaching shows that the Buddha encouraged skillful doubt, the kind of questioning that opens doors, not the kind that closes the heart. In America, many people grew up in strict religious environments, but as adults, they begin to ask, "Does what I believe really bring me peace?" That very question can lead them toward the Dharma, a path that encourages direct experience instead of blind belief. A software engineer in Silicon Valley once said he doubted everything: faith, religion, even the meaning of life. At first, doubt left him confused and alone. But when he discovered meditation, he realized doubt wasn't his enemy. It was an invitation to search more deeply. He said, "Because of doubt, I truly began my journey of self-discovery." Modern science also values healthy skepticism. Every breakthrough begins with the question, "Is this really true?" In the same way, on the spiritual path, doubt can be the fuel that drives us to investigate, test, and taste the truth for ourselves. Still, it's important to distinguish between clear doubt and paralyzing doubt. Clear doubt pushes us to practice and verify. Paralyzing doubt only freezes us in hesitation. For example, a college student hears about mindfulness meditation and wonders, "Does this really help, or is it just a passing trend?" If he chooses to try, even 5 minutes a day, and notices his mind becoming calmer, then doubt transforms into wisdom. But if he only questions and never tries, he remains stuck in uncertainty. Psychologists call this a growth mindset, the attitude that doubt is not failure, but a chance to learn. This is exactly the spirit the Buddha wanted us to cultivate when he advised not to accept blindly, but to test teachings through lived experience. A moving story. An American mother who lost her daughter in a tragic accident lost faith in all religions she had known. She doubted every teaching she once believed. But when she attended a meditation retreat, no one forced her to believe anything. She was only invited to sit, to breathe, to feel. That simple practice began to soothe her grief. She later said, "Doubt was not wrong. It was the bridge that carried me to a more authentic path." One of the most powerful ways to transform doubt into wisdom is to bring your questions into practice. Instead of only thinking inside your head, test them in daily life. If you doubt whether meditation really helps you sleep, give yourself 5 quiet minutes before bed. If you doubt whether gratitude truly shifts your mood, try writing down 3 things you are grateful for each night for 1 week. Wisdom arises from experience, not endless debate. The Buddha once compared doubt to a demanding companion. If we know how to listen, that companion keeps us alert and safe from blind belief. But if we let it take control, it ties our feet and prevents us from moving at all. The right attitude is to dialogue with doubt, but never allow it to chain us down. A man in Chicago once shared that he doubted every form of therapy after years of disappointment with antidepressants. Yet, instead of closing his heart, he decided to try a community meditation group. At first, doubt whispered, "This won't help." But with each sitting, he discovered a new experience, a quiet space in his mind he had never known. He realized that doubt had kept him from blind belief, but it had also guided him to test a new path. In science, the practice of peer review is exactly this: collective questioning to discover truth more objectively. In the same way, on the spiritual path, doubt can become a tool of verification, protecting us from extremes. A US study on spiritual questioning found that people who ask and explore deep questions often develop stronger, longer-lasting faith than those who simply believe without testing. In other words, doubt does not destroy faith. It can actually mature it. Try this small practice. This week, write down 1 big question you carry about life. Do not rush to answer it. Bring that question into your breathing, your walking, your meditation. Allow life itself to respond through your own lived experience. Here is a reflection to hold. Can I transform my doubt into motivation for learning rather than letting it become a barrier? If the answer is yes, you have turned a stumbling stone into a stepping stone. And when you go to bed tonight, remember, doubt is not the enemy. It can be a companion if you know how to listen with an open heart. As you drift into sleep, let your unanswered questions become seeds. And in the morning, perhaps they will sprout into deeper wisdom within you. In Buddhism, the precepts are like a protective fence around the garden of the mind. They are not meant to imprison us, but to give wholesome seeds a chance to grow without being overrun by weeds. When people hear precepts, they often imagine harsh restrictions. But in truth, the 5 precepts are protection and freedom, not confinement. The 5 precepts are simple: do not kill, do not steal, avoid sexual misconduct, do not lie, and refrain from intoxicants. They may sound basic, but in practice, their power to transform is immense. Take the first, not killing. In America, many people live this precept by eating less meat or by choosing a more compassionate way of living toward the environment. This nurtures compassion while also protecting both health and the planet. Not stealing means more than not taking possessions. It also means not stealing people's time, effort, or ideas. In the workplace, when we respect a colleague's contribution, we are keeping this precept. Avoiding sexual misconduct reminds us to live with love that is honest and responsible. In a culture full of temptations, this precept protects relationships, making them more stable and genuine. Not lying is perhaps deeper than it first appears. Words have the power to destroy, but also the power to heal. A sincere word can restore trust, while a lie can shatter a family. When we live in honesty, our hearts feel lighter, no longer burdened by the need to hide. Refraining from intoxicants shields us from losing control. In a nation struggling with alcohol and opioid abuse, this precept not only keeps individuals safe, but also protects whole communities. A man in America who had struggled with alcoholism shared that, when he committed to this precept, he felt as though he was reborn. His family's trust returned, his work stabilized, and his heart carried less shame. He said, "The precepts did not trap me, they gave me back my freedom." Modern psychology confirms this truth. Research in the US shows that people who live with integrity, who do not deceive, report greater happiness and less chronic stress. Keeping precepts does not mean becoming perfect overnight. It is a practice of training day by day. Each time we fall, we simply stand back up and return to the path of mindfulness. Try this small exercise. For 1 week, choose one precept to focus on. Perhaps not lying. Notice how often you are tempted to exaggerate or conceal the truth. Each time, pause, take a breath, and return to honesty. In just a week, your mind will feel clearer and lighter. A question to reflect on: which precept is hardest for me to keep, and why? The answer will shine a light on the tender places in your heart that need the most care. And tonight, before you sleep, whisper a small vow: "May I keep my mind pure." Let that vow carry you into rest, protected by the fence of mindfulness and ethics. In Buddhist teachings, the 10 wholesome actions are seen as the foundation for a happy and peaceful life. If the precepts are the protective fence of the mind, then the 10 wholesome actions are like fertile soil where seeds of peace can bloom. They are divided into 3 groups: 3 wholesome actions of the body: not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct. 4 wholesome actions of speech: not lying, not speaking divisively, not using harsh words, not engaging in idle chatter. And 3 wholesome actions of the mind: not being driven by greed, not being consumed by anger, and nurturing right view. At first glance, this may sound like a list of rules, but in reality, the 10 wholesome actions are a guide to joyful living. Every time we practice them, the mind becomes clearer and life feels lighter. A woman in California shared that she once spent much of her time gossiping about co-workers. In the moment, it felt exciting, but afterward she felt empty and ashamed. When she learned about the 10 wholesome actions, she began pausing before she spoke, asking, "Will this word bring benefit?" After a few months, she found herself less stressed, and her relationships grew healthier. The precepts of not lying and not speaking divisively are especially important in today's America, where misinformation and heated conflicts spread rapidly on social media. By choosing truth and reconciliation, we contribute to healing rather than division. Social science also confirms this. Studies show that people who speak kindly and offer encouragement tend to have stronger, lasting relationships and report greater happiness. This echoes the spirit of the 10 wholesome actions: sow kind words, reap joy. Consider another example: a young man in New York who was addicted to violent speech. He often shouted and cursed whenever he faced difficulties. When he began practicing the precept of not using harsh words, he replaced anger with calm, constructive speech. Over time, not only did his mind feel lighter, but his relationships also became more harmonious. The three wholesome actions of the mind are equally profound. Not being greedy does not mean giving up dreams, but refusing to let craving take control. Not being angry means not letting rage destroy the heart. And nurturing right view means seeing life through wisdom instead of through the distorted lens of ego. A man in Texas once lived in constant pursuit of wealth. When the stock market collapsed, he fell into despair. But when he discovered the 10 wholesome actions, he realized that true peace was not in his bank account, but in letting go of endless ambition and living with kindness. He said, "I lost money, but I found peace again." One of the most powerful aspects of the 10 wholesome actions is their cumulative nature. A kind word spoken today may seem small, but when repeated again and again, it builds a character, a relationship, and even a whole life. In one American family, the father had always been hot-tempered. He often shouted at his children for the smallest mistakes. But when he learned about the 10 wholesome actions, he began to practice not being driven by anger. Instead of yelling, he chose to pause, breathe deeply, and remain silent before reacting. Over time, the family atmosphere grew warmer, and his children felt closer to him. This is clear proof that even one wholesome action, practiced consistently, can transform the destiny of an entire household. Another important practice is avoiding idle or useless speech. In America, many people spend hours scrolling social media, swept into endless conversations without meaning. The 10 wholesome actions teach us to be silent when our words bring no benefit. Such silence is not avoidance, but a chance to cultivate depth and peace. In the workplace, practicing the 10 wholesome actions has remarkable effects. A manager in Boston shared that after applying the principle of not speaking divisively, she focused on building cooperation instead of competition. The result was a more united team, higher productivity, and greater happiness among her staff. Behavioral science calls this pro-social behavior, actions taken for the good of others. When people act kindly, not only do individuals become happier, but entire groups benefit. This reflects the very heart of the 10 wholesome actions, living not just for oneself, but for the well-being of all around us. A profound aspect of the 10 wholesome actions is the link between body, speech, and mind. When the mind is calm, speech and actions naturally turn wholesome. But when the mind is filled with anger, it is hard to avoid harsh words or harmful deeds. This is why practicing the 10 wholesome actions is not about external control, but about nurturing peace at the root, within the mind. Here is a simple nightly practice. Before going to bed, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What wholesome action did I do today with my body? 2. What wholesome word did I speak today? 3. What wholesome thought did I cultivate in my mind today? By maintaining this habit, you will see your heart gradually brighten, and wholesome actions will become second nature. And here is a deeper question to reflect on. If every person on earth practiced the 10 wholesome actions for just 1 week, how would society change? Such a question opens the door to hope that the small steps of each individual can echo into great collective transformation. When you go to sleep tonight, remember that happiness is not far away. It begins with 10 simple, wholesome actions you can plant every day. And as you rest, let your heart be nourished by the trust that each kind word, each wholesome thought today has already made this world a little less full of suffering. In the great discourse on the foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha taught special methods of contemplation. Among them is corpse meditation, gazing deeply into the decay of the body. For many people, this practice sounds difficult, even frightening. Yet its purpose is not to create horror, but to help us see directly the truth of impermanence. In America, where culture often hides death behind cosmetics, lavish funerals, or even modern embalming techniques, corpse meditation may seem foreign. But in reality, it is a necessary reminder: no one can escape the breakdown of the body. The Buddha encouraged his disciples to visit cemeteries, observing corpses in different stages of decomposition. By seeing such changes, we loosen our attachment to the body as I or mine. This body is only a compound of earth, water, air, and fire, destined to dissolve back into nature. A physician working in a New York hospital shared that, after years of witnessing patient deaths, he became calmer in the face of mortality. He said, "When I see death as a natural part of life, I cherish each moment with my loved ones more deeply." This is the true spirit of corpse contemplation, not letting death terrify us, but letting it inspire greater love. One patient in a hospital mindfulness program admitted that at first, reflecting on death made her uncomfortable. But gradually, she realized, "I no longer fear wrinkles or gray hair. I see them only as natural signs of change." Psychological studies also confirm this insight. When people face death directly, they tend to live more authentically and compassionately. Research in the United States shows that those who practice death meditation often experience less anxiety, greater life satisfaction, and stronger focus on meaningful relationships rather than material possessions. Corpse contemplation does not mean we must visit graveyards to stare at actual bodies. In daily life, we can practice by noticing a fallen leaf, a fading flower, or even an old photograph of ourselves. Each is a reminder that the body will change, and that change is natural. A woman in California keeps an old photograph of her younger self on her desk. Each time she looks at it, she does not feel regret, but smiles. For her, it is a reminder that every stage of life is precious. This too is corpse contemplation, not to sadden us, but to awaken gratitude. One of the greatest benefits of corpse contemplation is that it softens our attachment to the body. In American culture, where the beauty industry is worth billions, many people are obsessed with staying young. They spend thousands on surgery, anti-aging creams, and harsh diets. Yet no matter what we do, the law of impermanence never changes. Corpse contemplation reminds us, this body is not our true essence, it is only a temporary garment. A young American once struggled with an eating disorder. He looked at his body with hatred. When guided into corpse contemplation, at first he resisted. But slowly he realized that every body changes, every body dissolves. He said, "For the first time, I saw my body not as an enemy, but as a temporary companion." In Buddhist tradition, corpse contemplation also awakens our sense of responsibility to live. When we know that death will come, we stop delaying what matters most. How many times have we postponed saying, "I'm sorry," for another day? How many times have we chosen our phones over hugging a loved one? When death is real in our awareness, we know tomorrow may never arrive, and so we choose love today. A study in the United States found that people who regularly reflect on impermanence and death value relationships more, argue less over small things, and savor simple joys, a family meal, a quiet walk. An elderly man in Florida began visiting the cemetery near his home once a week. At first, his family thought it was strange. But he said, "When I see the gravestones, I no longer fear death. I only feel the need to live better and kinder." Corpse contemplation can even become a gentle evening practice. As you lie down in bed, imagine your body like a leaf slowly falling. No fear, just watching. Whisper to yourself, this body will dissolve, but awareness continues. Such a reminder helps you let go of worry and enter sleep lightly, without clinging to a tomorrow that has not yet come. A question to ponder: if I knew for certain that I would leave this body tomorrow, how would I live today? Let that question guide your choices. More time with loved ones, less chasing illusions, more gratitude for what already island. Corpse meditation does not darken life. On the contrary, it makes every moment more precious than ever. For only when we look directly at death do we truly learn how to live. In the Bodhisattva path, the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections, are seen as the living bridge from the shore of suffering to the shore of awakening. We have already named them, but here let us look more deeply, not as theory, but as a way of life. The 6 paramitas are generosity, morality, patience, effort, meditation, and wisdom. They do not stand alone. They support one another, like 6 bridges that carry us across the ocean of suffering. Generosity, dana. This is not only about giving money or things, but also about giving time, presence, and love. A busy father in America reads to his child every night before bed. That too is generosity. Each act of giving softens the ego and opens the heart. Morality, sila. This is the foundation of peace. When we choose honesty and kindness, we no longer carry the burden of guilt or fear of consequences. An American businessman chose transparent dealings, even if profit was less at first. In return, he slept peacefully and earned lasting trust. Patience, kshanti. In a world full of pressure, patience is not weakness, it is strength. A teacher in New York, faced with rebellious students, chose to listen in silence instead of shouting. Through patience, she found connection instead of conflict. Effort, virya. This is the fire that keeps us moving forward. A student in America, working and studying at the same time, still sets aside 15 minutes each day to meditate. That steady perseverance builds inner strength and keeps him from collapsing under pressure. Meditation, dhyana. This is the capacity to return to stillness. A doctor in the emergency room, before entering a patient's room, pauses for 3 mindful breaths. In that moment of meditation, he regains clarity and compassion. Wisdom, prajna. This is the light that shines on the whole path. Wisdom is not simply book knowledge, but the ability to see impermanence, non-self, and interdependence. When a woman in America lost her job, instead of despair, she saw it as an opening to begin again. That was wisdom in action. The 6 paramitas are not faraway ideals. They are footsteps we can take every day. Today you may practice generosity with a smile. Tomorrow you may practice patience by listening instead of reacting. Each day, 1 paramita becomes a brick on the path to liberation. Science also confirms this truth. Research shows that people who live with generosity, honesty, patience, perseverance, mindfulness, and wisdom have better mental and physical health. In this way, the paramitas are not only a spiritual path, they are a recipe for human happiness itself. A question to ponder: which paramita is most absent in my life right now? The answer will show you where care and practice are most needed, so your journey may be more balanced. And as you fall asleep tonight, choose 1 paramita to hold in your heart. Whisper softly, "Tomorrow I will walk with patience," or "Tomorrow I will practice wisdom." One small vow, but it can transform the way you live the entire day. For more than 2 decades, mindfulness has become one of the most researched Buddhist practices in modern science. What the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago is now being confirmed by studies in neuroscience, psychology, and medicine. Mindfulness means being fully present in the moment, without judgment, without escape, simply observing with a calm and steady heart. In practice, we return to the breath, feel the body, recognize emotions, and allow them to come and go like clouds across the sky. A famous study by John Kabat-Zinn at the University of Massachusetts showed that the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, or MBSR, helped reduce anxiety and depression by up to 50%. Patients who joined the 8-week course reported not only less stress, but also better sleep, sharper focus, and greater satisfaction in life. In the busy life of America, many have found mindfulness to be a doorway out of exhaustion. A young office worker in New York once felt crushed by emails, deadlines, and endless meetings. After 10 minutes of morning meditation, she noticed her mind becoming clearer. She reacted less impulsively, and her work became more effective. Mindfulness also nurtures physical health. Studies show that meditation lowers blood pressure, reduces the risk of heart disease, and strengthens the immune system. When the mind is at peace, the body begins to heal itself. A doctor in California applied mindfulness with patients suffering from chronic pain. He taught them to observe the pain instead of fighting against it. The pain did not vanish completely, but their suffering around the pain decreased dramatically. This is the difference between pain and suffering, a truth the Buddha spoke of long ago. Mindfulness also improves relationships. A study at the University of North Carolina found that couples who practiced together reported stronger bonds and deeper satisfaction. When we are fully present for each other, listening without judgment, love itself becomes more stable and alive. One American woman shared that her husband at first did not understand mindfulness. But when she began listening to their child with full attention, without interrupting or rushing, she noticed their family dynamic changing. Soon her husband joined in, and they created a weekly mindful dinner at home. She said, "We were not just eating, we were truly present with one another." Another important gift of mindfulness is its power to regulate emotions. In America, many people live under constant pressure from work stress, financial burdens, or social uncertainty. When strong emotions like anger, fear, or anxiety arise, mindfulness helps us pause, recognize, and not be swept away. A US veteran with PTSD shared that each time nightmares woke him in panic, he used to feel helpless. But when guided into mindfulness, he learned to focus on his breath, place a hand on his chest, and whisper, "I am still safe." Slowly, the panic softened, and sleep returned with greater ease. In education, mindfulness has also created remarkable change. Many schools in the United States now include short meditation practices in class. Research shows that students who practice are more focused, less disruptive, and perform better academically. One teacher said, "Just 3 minutes of breathing together before class can transform the entire atmosphere." Mindfulness is also tied to creativity. When the mind is calm, fresh ideas have space to arise. Many artists and musicians in America use mindfulness as a tool to unlock inspiration. One writer admitted that he often struggled with blocks, but once he practiced sitting quietly with his breath, new words began to flow naturally. Neuroscience confirms this. Mindfulness increases activity in regions of the brain linked to creativity and problem-solving, which means mindfulness not only brings peace, but also sharpens our ability to work wisely and effectively. Here's a simple practice you can try tonight. As you prepare for sleep, instead of letting your mind wander, place a hand on your belly and feel each breath. Inhale and whisper, "I am here." Exhale and whisper, "I am at peace." Just a few minutes of this can invite rest more gently. A question for reflection. Has mindfulness ever changed the way I looked at a difficult situation? If the answer is yes, nurture that seed. If not yet, perhaps today is the perfect time to begin. Mindfulness is not a luxury reserved for monasteries. It can be practiced in the kitchen, in the office, or in the park nearby. And now that modern science confirms its power, we can trust even more that each mindful breath is a gift to both body and mind. As you drift into sleep, let mindfulness be the soft blanket around you. Trust that every moment of awareness you live today has already planted seeds of peace for tomorrow. After exploring the benefits of mindfulness through the lens of science, let us continue the journey to see that awareness is not limited to the individual. It extends outward, touching communities and even shaping society. A calm mind can become the foundation for a more peaceful world. In Buddhism, there is the concept of interbeing, the truth that everything is connected. When one person practices mindfulness, not only do they benefit, but those around them also feel the peace that arises. Consider an example in America. An elementary school teacher in Seattle began every class with 3 minutes of breathing together. At first, the children were restless. But after a few weeks, the entire classroom became more focused and gentle. Parents even noticed that their children were less irritable at home. Just one small practice by the teacher shifted the energy of an entire school community. Social science calls this emotional contagion, the spreading of emotions. When one person is calm, that energy can ripple through the group. This is why, in Buddhist tradition, community meditation carries such power. The collective energy uplifts and nourishes each individual. A veteran in the United States who joined a mindfulness group for PTSD once said, "I came here to heal myself. But over time, I realized I was also helping to heal others." When he sat in peace, those around him felt safer too. The Buddha once taught, "When the mind is settled, the world is settled." A simpler sentence, yet deeply profound. For mind and world are not separate. When our minds are calm, the way we treat family, colleagues, and society naturally becomes more gentle. Research in America shows that companies introducing mindfulness practices saw workplace conflicts drop significantly, while cooperation and creativity increased. This demonstrates that mindfulness not only supports personal happiness, but also strengthens collective effectiveness. So how can mindfulness be brought into communities? It does not require grand programs. It begins with small, simple actions: a family eating dinner in awareness, a group of friends walking together in silence, or a company starting a meeting with one mindful breath. Such humble practices can become seeds of peace sown into the fabric of daily life. A profound aspect of community mindfulness is its ripple effect. When one person pauses to breathe, they can inspire others to do the same. Like a single candle lighting another, mindfulness does not diminish, it multiplies. A woman in California shared that she began practicing mindfulness during family meals. At first, her husband and children found it strange when she invited everyone to sit in silence for 1 minute before eating. But after a few weeks, the family adapted. They noticed meals became warmer, with fewer arguments. Just 1 quiet minute transformed the atmosphere of their home. In fast-paced American society, small practices like these can become islands of peace. A startup in New York once introduced Mindful Monday, 10 minutes of silence before work each Monday morning. At first, many were skeptical, but after a few months, productivity rose and the office culture grew more friendly and supportive. Neuroscience shows that when a group practices mindfulness together, their brain activity begins to synchronize. In other words, they start to understand each other on a deeper level without needing many words. This is the foundation for empathy and cooperation. The Buddha often emphasized the power of the Sangha, the community of practitioners. A lone meditator may lose strength, but within a community, shared energy sustains the path. The same is true for mindfulness in modern society. The more people practice, the stronger the collective peace becomes, even touching those who have never meditated before. A question for you to reflect on: what seed of mindfulness can I plant in my community? Perhaps it is a moment of silence in a classroom, a gentle reminder to breathe during a meeting, or a family meal without phones. These small actions are the first steps toward great change. As you go to sleep tonight, imagine that you are not practicing only for yourself, but for your community. Each mindful breath you take can be a gift to your family, your friends, and society at large. Let that awareness cradle you in rest, so that tomorrow you awaken as a small flame, ready to spread peace and light to the world. As our journey goes deeper, a simple truth begins to shine. Every spiritual practice points to the same realization. True happiness is found in the awareness of each moment. And every moment can become a doorway to wisdom if we pause and truly observe. In Buddhism, there is the teaching of dwelling happily in the present moment. We do not need to wait for tomorrow, nor return to the past to find peace. Peace is already here, in this breath, in this step, in this smile. A woman in America once shared that she was constantly worried about her financial future. But when she began practicing mindfulness, she learned to focus on what she already had: a small home, a simple meal, and the love of her family. She said, "For the first time in my life, I realized wealth is not in my bank account, but in my heart." Modern psychology also shows a strong link between gratitude, presence, and mental well-being. Studies confirm that people who keep a daily gratitude journal report higher levels of happiness and lower risk of depression. This affirms the ancient teaching that peace is always present. We only need to recognize it. In the sutras, the Buddha compared the untended mind to a thirsty traveler in the desert, always chasing mirages of water. In the same way, when we chase after wealth or status, we believe it is happiness, but when we reach it, it dissolves. True happiness is not at the finish line, but in the ability to sip from each drop of the present. A man in Texas once struggled with chronic anxiety. Doctors prescribed medication, but relief was only temporary. When he joined a meditation retreat, he was guided to return to his breath. At first, his mind resisted, but slowly, short moments of calm began to appear. He said, "I realized I didn't need to wait until my anxiety was gone to be at peace. Peace was already present, right in the middle of my fear, if I was willing to return to my breath." One of the greatest gifts of dwelling in the present moment is that we begin to see life with fresh eyes. What once felt ordinary now becomes a source of quiet joy: a warm cup of tea, a cool breeze, a rare moment of sitting undisturbed. A student in California shared that when he practiced mindfulness, he realized he often drank coffee without ever tasting it. His mind was always busy with his phone and schoolwork. But when he tried drinking in awareness, he noticed the bittersweet flavor, the warmth spreading through his body. He said, "I realized that happiness had been here all along, in this very cup of coffee." In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught, "Contemplate the body in the body, feelings in the feelings, mind in the mind, and phenomena in the phenomena." This is an invitation to live with each experience as it is, instead of chasing illusions of the past or the future. Neuroscience also shows that regular mindfulness practice decreases activity in brain regions linked to anxiety, while strengthening areas connected to lasting happiness. In other words, when we live fully in the present, the brain gradually rewires itself to access peace more easily. A woman in New York once lived under constant work stress. Every thought of the future filled her with fear and sleepless nights. But with a simple practice, breathing in, I know I am breathing in, breathing out, I know I am breathing out, she slowly reclaimed her rest. She discovered that peace was not waiting for her tomorrow. It was already here, in this breath. Dwelling happily in the present also transforms families and communities. When one person is at peace, that peace naturally spreads to those around them. A family in Florida shared that when they tried sitting quietly together for 10 minutes each evening, family conflicts decreased noticeably. They said, "We didn't need to solve every problem right away. Just sitting quietly together helped us feel closer." Here is a question to reflect on. Am I truly living in the present, or am I endlessly chasing the shadows of the past and the future? If the answer is, I am often chasing, then this very moment is the invitation to stop. When you go to bed tonight, place your hand on your belly, feel the breath, and whisper, "This moment is enough." That simple reminder may carry you into a peaceful sleep while planting seeds of mindfulness for tomorrow. As our journey reaches this point, it becomes clear that all teachings and practices lead to one common place, helping us live with awareness and compassion. At the center of it all is the ability to let go of burdens so we can live fully in each passing moment. In the scriptures, the Buddha often spoke of a traveler carrying heavy luggage on his shoulders. The moment he puts it down, relief immediately spreads through his whole body. We are the same. We carry the weight of success and failure, regret and worry, believing we cannot let them go. Yet the truth is, the instant we set them down, lightness arises right away. A man in Chicago shared that after losing his home in the financial crisis, he lived for years in bitterness. He constantly blamed himself and held on to anger. Through meditation, he learned to observe those emotions without clinging to them. He said, "I realized my suffering did not come from losing the house, but from holding on to the label, 'I am a failure.' When I released that label, I could see I still had my family, my health, and the chance to begin again." Modern psychology calls this cognitive reframing. When we shift the way we see, the burden shifts as well. What once appeared as a tragedy can become an opportunity for growth. This is where the Buddha's teachings and modern science beautifully meet. A woman in America, after her divorce, entered a meditation retreat. She carried deep resentment and the sting of betrayal. During the retreat, she was invited to practice forgiveness. At first, it felt impossible. But day by day, as she sat quietly with her breath and observed the pain, she realized that holding on to hatred only deepened her own suffering. She said, "When I forgave, it was not about setting him free, it was about setting myself free." In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha taught that the roots of suffering are craving, anger, and ignorance. When we release these poisons, the mind becomes clear and free. Letting go does not mean abandoning responsibilities or ignoring life. It means releasing the attachments that cause our suffering. Here is a question for reflection. Is there a burden I am carrying that I could put down today? Perhaps it is an old memory, a comparison, or a worry about something that has not yet happened. Imagine yourself placing it down and notice the instant relief that follows. One of the deepest gifts of letting go is the space it creates for inner freedom. When we cling tightly to the past or the future, the mind is like a room crowded with furniture, leaving no space for light to enter. But when we set some of the burdens down, that room becomes spacious, open, and filled with light. A young man in California was once obsessed with becoming successful by society's standards. He worked himself to exhaustion, compared his life to his friends, and fell into depression. When he came to meditation, his teacher reminded him, "You don't need to become someone else. You only need to return to yourself." That simple phrase became a turning point. He began to release the pressure and discovered joy in small things like walking outdoors or talking with his parents. In the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha taught, "Let the mind arise, but do not let it dwell anywhere." This is the essence of letting go, to act, to love, to live fully, without clinging to the result. When we are not bound by expectations, freedom and creativity naturally appear. Neuroscience confirms this truth. When we learn to release obsessive thoughts, the brain shifts from stress mode into recovery mode. Cortisol, the stress hormone, decreases, while serotonin, the chemical of well-being, rises. Letting go, then, is not only philosophy, but also a natural therapy for body and mind. A middle-aged woman in New York carried resentment toward her mother for many years. Despite her wealth and social status, she always felt empty. At a retreat, she was invited to write a letter of forgiveness, not to send, but simply to release. When she finished, she broke into tears and felt as though she had been set free. She said, "I thought holding on to anger made me stronger, but it only imprisoned me." Forgiveness is letting go, and letting go is freedom. Letting go does not mean denying our emotions. On the contrary, it means facing them gently, without letting them control us. When anger arises, we can take a deep breath and softly name it, "Hello, anger." In that moment of recognition, the anger already begins to soften. This is the first step of letting go. Here is a question for reflection. If today were my last day, would I still want to carry this burden? If the answer is no, then why not set it down right now? And tonight, as you fall asleep, imagine yourself as a traveler placing a heavy bag on the roadside. With each exhale, whisper, "I let go." Allow your body to sink into rest, and let your dreams open into wide fields where you walk freely, unburdened, and at peace. We have walked together on a long journey, beginning with sunyata, the teaching of emptiness, and karma, the truth of cause and effect. Then we entered the vast path of the Bodhisattva, the map of the Four Noble Truths, the power of samadhi, and the profound echoes of the Heart Sutra. We discovered Sangha, the strength of community. We reflected on time as a teacher of letting go. We learned from the image of the hungry ghost, transforming craving into compassion. We explored the Dharma as art, turning wounds into creativity, and we walked through the 6 paramitas as living bridges of the Bodhisattva path. Our steps did not stop there. We turned toward death itself through Maranasati, the practice of mindful awareness of mortality. We found refuge in the triple gem Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We loosened the chains of ego through anatta, the teaching of non-self. We transformed doubt into wisdom, kept the 5 precepts as a fence for the mind, and planted seeds of joy through the 10 wholesome actions. Later, we went deeper still. We practiced corpse contemplation to see impermanence clearly. We revisited the 6 perfections, not as theory, but as steps to live each day. And we saw how modern science confirms the power of mindfulness, not only in monasteries, but in offices, classrooms, families, and every ordinary moment. We learned to dwell happily in the present moment, what the Buddha called present moment dwelling in peace. Not waiting for tomorrow, not searching in the past, but tasting freedom here and now. Finally, we arrived at letting go, the open gate to true freedom. By putting down our burdens, we walk lighter, we sleep deeper, and we live more fully. The wonder of this journey is that none of it is distant theory. Each teaching can be practiced tonight. If you cannot sleep, whisper the mantra from the Heart Sutra, gate, gate, paragate. If you feel tension, take a few mindful steps across your room. If anger rises, release a part of it with one long breath. Each of these small acts is a real practice, a seed of transformation planted in the soil of your daily life. Looking back, we see that Buddhism is not merely a religion. It is an art of living. An art that teaches us to sleep more peacefully, to love more deeply, and to live more fully awake. Thank you for joining this 3-hour journey into Buddhist wisdom. If these lessons have brought you peace, I invite you to subscribe and continue walking with this community. And if you feel inspired, I offer you a simple challenge, a 30-day practice of meditation, just 5 minutes of mindful breathing each day. Watch how it changes not only your sleep, but also your entire way of living. So tonight, may you rest well. And as you close your eyes, may you feel the deep calm of Buddhist wisdom holding you, like a gentle embrace of peace.